Here's the camera mounting dovetail. All the pieces slide on it modularly. It has a relief in the bottom so that when you mount it to the rig, you can just set it on and slide it forward. When you're mounting the separate pieces on, they slide on separately and lock in place. So let's look at the camera mount first. This is one for the Epic X. It mounts with, the camera is mounted into the top of the camera. The camera mounts on this rig upside down. So 2 ⅛ bolts here and 2 M4 bolts here. The camera is mounted upside down here. There is a cover on the camera that is an airflow cover that comes off, and those 2 screws go into the holes that mounted that cover. So you'd bolt the camera in place on here, slide it onto the dovetail, and these 2 screws lock it in place. The front lens mount typically goes on at the very front of the dovetail, and it locks in place with 1 bolt. If you're using, this is the 114mm support, this is the 95mm support, take the 2 bolts out here, swap this in, you have proper support for the front of the 95mm lens. And these bolts have a bit of clearance in them so that this can line up to the front of the lens. So you typically mount the camera, mount the lens to the camera, slide this up into place, and then tighten these 2 screws to support the front of the lens, and this support clamps on the lens. These parts can go on either before or after the lens. If you loosen, the bolts are long enough, you can loosen the dovetail, line up, and let it lock into place, and then tighten these up. Slide the lens motors on in whatever orientation you need for that particular setup, and this is completely adjustable any place you want to put it. There is one caveat on the prototype, on this prototype, in that, again, the relief here lets you just set it flat on there and slide it into place. But depending on the configuration of lens and camera, you may be obscuring one of these clamping bolts. On the Gen 2 rig, that's not an issue, but with this rig, if that's a problem, slide that mount out of the way, lock these bolts down, and then slide the mount back into position. That's how it works.